How to Keep Giving Value to Create Opportunities with Lorie Brown, episode 256. Are you ready to make your law firm a profit-generating machine that will free up your time and skyrocket your impact? With more than 2 decades of business growth experience and having proven that you can be successful while prioritizing your family and your impact, introducing the Profit with Law podcast. I am your host, the creator of the Firm Differentiator 10X Effect, Moshe Amsel. Well, hello and welcome to another amazing guest interview here on the Profit with Law podcast. I'm your host, Moshe Amsel, and today I have a very interesting guest for you. And one of the reasons that she's really interesting is because not only is she an attorney, but she's also a registered nurse, which to me, there's a lot of parallels because not only am I standing here behind this microphone talking to attorneys and helping them grow their businesses, but I'm also a paramedic. So we have a parallel paths that we chose to take, and I'm excited to have a conversation with her around that. And what made her choose that, and how did she work the two together? My paramedic job has absolutely nothing to do with what I'm doing here, other than the fact that I have learned to think quickly on my feet. I have learned to deal with stressful situations. There's nothing more stressful than having somebody's life in your hands and needing to deal with that on a minute by minute decision making basis. Sometimes when you're hanging upside down and in a car that was overturned on the side of the highway kind of thing. So that has definitely lent itself to my ability as a business owner and my ability as a coach. But I haven't married those two together, and I'm curious to see what our guest has done with those. But before I give away her whole story, let her tell it to us. I'm just going to give you the official intro, let you know who she is, and what we have as for her bio. I'm going to read to you, and then we will jump into a conversation. So Lorie Brown is a registered nurse as well as an attorney. She has a unique practice area of professional licensing defense where she works with nurses, doctors, pharmacists, and dentists, and other healthcare professionals before the licensing boards throughout the country, with co-counsel in states where she is not licensed. She's the author of Law and Order for Nurses, The Easy Way to Protect Your License and Your Livelihood, and the current president of the American Association of Nurse Attorneys. She also does legal nurse consulting, where she saves attorneys time and money with medical issues in their cases. And you can already start to see how Lorie is somebody who you definitely want to have on your speed dial. And she's also I didn't ask her what the official title she uses, but she's got her own law firm. So it's Brown Law Office. So she's the founder, co-owner, CEO, whatever, president, whatever she wants to call it, of Brown Law Office. We'll ask her that as soon as I welcome her on. But before I bring her on, we're going to take a quick moment, thank our sponsors who are making this show possible. And I would ask you to listen, because if something that they have to offer is of any relevance to you, you'd be doing us a huge service to go and check them out, to at least take an interest and see what they have, because this is an amazing resource that we provide, and it's all possible because of our sponsors. So we're going to cut to our sponsors. We'll be right back. Finding amazing employees is the toughest job for any business, and especially for a law firm. You deserve to be the law firm owner you've always wanted to be, but you can't get there without a great team. Get Staffed Up helps you build your all-star team by staffing your law firm with incredible full-time offshore virtual assistants. Work with Get Staffed Up to save money and your biggest resource, time, while they find you the best English-speaking VAs in the world. # delegate your way to freedom. To learn more, go to profitwithlaw.com/get staffed up. profitwithlaw.com/get staffed up. Thanks to our sponsor, Smith AI. Smith AI is a superior virtual receptionist service for small businesses. They specialize in working with solo and small law firms. I discovered Smith AI a couple of years ago and was blown away by the range of services, which are available at a cost any attorney
even those of you in the smallest solo practice can afford. Their friendly receptionists respond to potential clients in English or Spanish, screen and schedule new leads, and even take payment for consults. The best part is, they don't just handle these conversations by phone. They also have live agents and chatbots capturing leads on websites and via text message. If there's one growth hack to your practice, this is it. Smith's friendly gatekeepers can staff your front lines. They'll capture new leads while you work uninterrupted. You can finally have the peace of mind that while you're working, you're not missing out on future work. Plans start at just $210 a month for calls and $140 a month for chats. They even offer a totally free chatbot, so there's no excuse. Try Smith AI today and see for yourself why attorneys like Justy Nickel in Colorado say Smith AI receptionists are the secret to business growth and client happiness. Smith AI offers a free trial, and podcast listeners can get an extra $100 discount with promo code ProfitLaw100. That's ProfitLaw100. Sign up and learn more at www.smith.ai. Trust me when I say, don't let another day go by. Try Smith AI.
All right, and we are back. Lorie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's my absolute pleasure, and I appreciate you taking the time to be here with my audience today. So Lorie, before we do anything, you have a very interesting background, and I think that we need some color. I think we need to understand how you got to this. I mean, two completely different careers that you somehow managed to merge together. So which came first, and what made you decide to become a registered nurse, to become an attorney, and ultimately to use those two together?
Well, I never had a desire to become an attorney, although when I was younger, my parents said I liked to argue, I'd make a good attorney. But what happened is I was a registered nurse, and I was new, I was green, inexperienced, terrified, and a patient whose heart stopped, and the older, more experienced nurses were resuscitating him. And they asked me to go down to Central Supply to get this equipment to bring it up. And I was taking care of my patients and everybody else's patients because they were all busy resuscitating this man. And so I called down to Central Supply and asked them if they could bring the equipment. And they said, "We don't deliver." And I was just completely shocked that this hospital would want their highest paid professionals at the time to go down to Central Supply to get this life-saving equipment. And so I pleaded with the person on the other end of the phone, "Could you please bring it up? This man needs us to save his life. I'm taking care of my patients and the other patients." And she wouldn't have anything to do with it. And the next day I got called into my manager's office, and she wrote me up because of the way I spoke to the person from Central Supply. And I was just shocked. I couldn't believe that I was being written up for advocating for a patient who needed life-saving equipment. And I was shocked that the hospital would allow, have the system in place where you couldn't get items delivered. So I decided, well, I'll get my master's degree, because if I'm a manager, I'm going to make sure that my nurses are taken care of, and that they have a stay and a seat at the table and are empowered. And so I went to get my master's degree. I have a master's degree in nursing administration and clinical nurse specialist med surg. And I became a unit manager, and I had a great unit. And then a couple of years later, I got divorced, and my divorce attorney was great. And I had never thought about going to law school, but here I am. So I graduated, and people always say, "Well, what's the difference between nursing and law?" And I always say, well, when a patient comes to you, they don't have a sign on their head, appendicitis or whatever. You have to assess, plan, intervene, and evaluate. And the same is true in law. A patient or a client doesn't come to you and say, I have a tort matter or a medical malpractice. They say, "I think the doctor did something wrong. Can you help me?" And you assess, plan, intervene, and evaluate. Same process.
So that's how they're the same. I missed the one piece in the middle, and we don't need to dive deep into it, but so you fell in love with your family attorney, so you became an attorney. I mean, what was the honestly, for me, when I went through my career change, or at least the beginning of my career change, so I was in IT for 20 years, but 10 years into it, I already knew that wasn't for me. And I started this progression out. But then I went for my bachelor's, went for my master's, started my accounting practice, all while I was working, or a regular job, and then ultimately quit my job. And now I do this full time. So when I started, it was during my divorce, which is very interesting. But for me, it wasn't, oh, I fell in love with my divorce attorney or whatever. It was, I reevaluated my life, and things that I thought were important were not as important as I thought that they were. And things that I had put front and center as the driving factors, like I had put my work front and center because it was feeding my family. But then when I turned around and looked at my situation, I said, well, what did that do for me? What it did for me is made a situation where it didn't make sense for me to have my kids half the week because I'm the breadwinner. And therefore my ex has the kids most of the time. And I just have them one night a week and every other weekend because I was out there doing what I thought was the thing. So it really, all that stuff got me thinking about what was important to me and what I really wanted to stand for. And that's the journey that I took that precipitated with my divorce. So give us a little bit more background. How did you decide, an attorney, becoming an attorney? I mean, that's a big decision to make, to become an attorney, right? So it had to be more than just, I liked my divorce attorney.
Well, I knew I wanted to continue my education. I thought about, getting a PhD or Doctor of Nursing Science. And what I thought, what you do with those is you teach. And I just had no interest in teaching, which is funny because now I teach all the time. But so I decided, one of my co-nurse managers said to me, well, why don't you go to law school? And I really never thought about it. And then it was like, yeah, why not? So I kind of did it as a midlife crisis to like avoid the pain of the divorce. And so literally I took my LSAT review class and took the test in June, applied in before that, got in accepted in July and started in August. So it was boom, boom, boom. And I just avoided a lot of pain that way.
Yeah, I totally get that. As a matter of fact, that's when I became a paramedic. I got divorced. I got separated in 2005, and that's when I decided to go to medic school and did that at night. It was over 2,000-hour program, and I did it while working a regular job. So I really drove myself almost to death in that year. But yeah, that was my medication. I self-medicating. I like that term. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
All
And
right.
I
So
continued to work through
go
law
ahead.
school as well.
Yeah. So you were a nurse, you became an attorney. Then what happened? Then how'd you end up starting your law firm, and when did you leave nursing?
I continued to work for about the first 3 years of my career. I started at the state defending the Patients Compensation Fund, which is an excess fund for medical malpractice. And of course, with the state, I made less than I did as a nurse manager. So I continued to do nursing. I did home care and just went in the evenings and on weekends to visit patients. So I did that for like 3 years. And then I went to a law firm and quickly became partner and started the health law division. And I worked there for 8 years. And my biggest client was an insurance company that did medical malpractice, and they went under. And my partner said, "You don't have a job." And I was terrified. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't have cases to bring to another firm because it was my biggest client. And I couldn't go back to nursing because I was pregnant with my second child. And at that point, nursing had gone to 12-hour shifts and there was no childcare. So I thought, well, I'll do legal nurse consulting. I know all the attorneys. This will be easy. I'll hang out my shingle. And oh man, it was so difficult. And honestly, it took me about 5 years. I always joke I was an overnight success. It only took me 5 years. And I could have exponentially shortened that time had I not been stubborn and hired a coach much sooner. So I'll say that for one. But anyways, I grew to the point where I had 8 legal nurse consultants working for me. They came on a Monday, got a new case, got their check from the last case, brought me their work product, and this happened every week until about 10 years ago. I switched the focus of my practice to professional licensing defense. And this time I was able to grow that practice in about 9 months. That superseded the legal nurse consulting income. But now I still do both. I have a lot of help and run both those businesses. And I actually run a third business where I teach nurses how to become legal nurse consultants. So I have an amazing stable of nurses in all kinds of specialty that help out with these cases, and I teach them to be business owners.
That's so awesome. And there's so much to dive into. So now that we got to the heart of where you ended up, I want to start diving down these paths. So first of all, I love that term. I'm an overnight success 5 years in the making. Usually I'm an overnight success 10 years in the making, but something along those lines is, resonates with me really, really well. I like to say that I spent the first 4 years of my business trying to be an overnight success. And then I finally started building my business, and now it's just taken a few years to really get going. We're always in a rush. We're in a microwave economy, right? We're Instacart shoppers. We expect everything to happen for us overnight. Amazon next day delivery. As a matter of fact, we're waiting for Amazon to be delivering by drone so we can get everything within an hour instead of waiting a whole day for it. So we're in this society where we want everything right away, and we tend to forget that there's actually things you need to do to put in place and allow them to get to work in order to start to see results from them. So you've gone through all of this, and you've built 3 businesses. The second time, so when you switched practice areas and you went to professional license defense, it only took you 9 months, right?
Right.
And obviously you attribute that to the fact that you had a coach and you had the experience that you went through the first time. So you learned from mistakes. So what do you think, if you had to single out 1, 2, 3 things that you did differently on the second time around that really lent themselves to that rapid success of being able to get a practice area going within 9 months?
I think it's creating yourself as a celebrity or authority in that area. So my book, Law and Order for Nurses, The Easy Way to Protect Your License and Your Livelihood, was a very crucial piece of it because it's on Amazon and it's out there, and it's in nursing schools. And so a lot of people know about it. Plus I speak all over the country to nurses on Law and Order for Nurses.
Well, did the book come first, or the practice area came first? And the speaking engagements, that doesn't happen overnight, right? So
Right.
I'm curious, and maybe we could dive into this a little bit as a kind of a tangent, with how would somebody, if they want to position themselves as an authority and they want to take the path that you took, which came first, the chicken or the egg, right? So I write the book first, and that gets me speaking engagements, and that gets me the fame that people now are seeking me specifically because of my book and because of my speaking engagements. Or did I start building the practice? I started getting clients, and then through working with them, just got the information for the book. And while I was writing the book, got speaking engagements, which gave me further fuel for the book. And then I wrote the book, right? There's 2 totally different ways that you can come across this. What did you do? And why do you think that worked well for you?
Well, I've always done some professional licensing defense throughout my career, maybe 1, 2, 3 a year, nothing like the volume that we have now. So then I wrote the book because I had enough experience over the years. And when I transitioned, I said, I'm going to write the book. So, people can do it differently. I look at marketing as a holistic approach, and I look at it as a marketing pie, and there are a million different ways you can market. And it's picking one, getting good at it, going to the next one, get good at it, go to the next one. Like our YouTube channel is very robust, and people will call and say, I spent all night watching your videos. Like, who knew?
Right. That's the beauty of having something out there. I mean, look at the podcast here. The time that we're recording this, I think we're in the 220s, our episodes. And by the time that this episode gets released, I'm guessing it'll be, I don't know, 20 episodes from now, if not more. So we've got a ton of content for people to go and binge on. And that's when, if somebody is really seeking out the solution that you provide, they're going to dive deep into your stuff. And then by the time that they get on the phone with you, the question is not, do I want to work with you? And it's not how much, it's where do I sign? It's how do I get started, right?
Right. Exactly.
So it's definitely a ton of value to creating that authority. The problem I think that people have is, first of all, not knowing how to do it, right? But the other thing is the amount of time it takes to get that recognition, right? It's not the second I put a book out on Amazon, all of a sudden my phone's ringing off the hook, or I put out a few videos on YouTube, and now somebody, the reason that you're seeing that with your YouTube channel is because you've been doing it for a while.
Right.
There's a lot of content there. There's a lot of places somebody can turn and answers that people can find to different questions, which is getting people in through different avenues. So it's not something that happens on day one. What did you do at the beginning? How did you get the engine started? Or did you just keep doing what you were doing as you built up your authority until that business just started coming in on its own?
Yeah, that I kept working at it and contributing to different things. I'd had an email newsletter that I've written for the past, I don't know, 8 or 9 years. It goes out weekly to every nurse on my list, and we have over 10,000. And we talk about things to empower you as a nurse and to how to protect your license as well. So they may not need the license protection now, but when I talk about the empowerment piece, they get value. And then if they need help with their license, they remember me.
Right. Yeah. So that's really key is understanding that the purpose of the newsletter is not necessarily to drive business today. The purpose of the newsletter is to continue to provide ongoing value to the people who are on that list that are reading it, because if they find value in reading it, ultimately, when they need something, or they hear somebody or know somebody that needs something, they'll send them your way. And especially when it's like a profession. So, hey, I'm talking to nurses. So this nurse has been reading my newsletter every week. Now she's on a floor. She's got 5 other nurse friends, 6 other nurse friends, and one of them has a challenge. Now they're able to, okay, you can go to Lorie, and Lorie's going to be able to solve that for you.
Right. And then when you speak too, that also helps. I look at it as you want to be everywhere, and you want to be the name associated with whatever your practice area is. So I want to be the go-to nurse go-to attorney for nurse licensing issues.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to go back to your book for a second. Did you self-publish, or you had a publisher?
Self-published.
Okay. And did you have to figure out how to do that? Was there somebody who guided you on how to do that? Did you, and before you even answer that, because I think the bigger question is how long did it take to write a book, and was it difficult? People, they understand the value of having a book, I think, and I could be wrong, but I think our listeners are like shaking their head and saying, yes, I understand the value of having a book, but I just can't wrap my head around the amount of time it's going to take and the effort it's going to take to actually go and write one.
I'll share with you my easiest book writing tip. Okay. So what I would suggest is you take index cards, and then just sit in a comfortable place, have a glass of wine, and just start writing topics that you know about. And then do the 52 pickup, throw them in the air, and then start arranging in, well, this kind of goes with this area and this goes with that area. And try to place them like that. And then those become your chapters. So it's really not that hard. And the other secret that I do is I dictate everything. I'm very verbal, so I don't like to type, and I have a transcriptionist transcribe it. I had an editor go through and edit it, and that was it. It was actually very easy.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm also an audio person. I don't like writing at all. And I had a guy, Mike Saunders, on the podcast, and my team will put the link to the show in the show notes so you guys can go and listen to it. But he's got an authority building business. So what he does is he has a podcast and he interviews you, and he does 2 or 3 interviews depending on the amount of content. And then he takes those 3 interviews and turns them into a book. So his team actually does the book writing for you. So when they interview you, it not only allows you to just free flow and speak and get it all out, but you even come up with examples and stories that you wouldn't have come up if you were sitting there with a pen in front of pen and paper in front of you, or a blinking cursor. And so it's a very interesting way of doing it. And so I like that idea. I like the process, and I definitely like the 52 card pickup idea. Don't try to do it in order, just kind of spitball as things come to you, and then once you have them all, just put them in disarray so you can put them in an order that makes sense. So how long did it take you from start to finish to write the book?
I'm on my 4th book now. So this one's called What They Don't Teach You in Nursing School. And I figure if I can get to the nurses before they graduate, let them know who I am, then again, I'll be the go-to person when they need somebody. So I can't really tell you.
It's incredible because, you even told me you just participated in at least a part of our Hidden Revenue Summit. One of the things that I highlight in this idea of information products, which a book is an information product. One of the things that I highlight in this idea of implementing information products as a practice area in your law firm is to get people before they need you, to find what's the pain point before, or what's their situation before. And if you can talk to them in that specific situation and provide value and actually find a way to monetize them even then you can parlay that into clients later, because they all know who you are. When they have a problem, you're the one that they're going to. They're seeking you out because they've already had this previous experience with you. So I love that you're writing a book to get people who aren't even nurses yet, right? They're in nursing school, but they're going to become nurses. They're at some point very likely going to have to protect their license or solve some other problem that requires empowerment, and that's something that you talk on, and you're the one that they're going to reach out to, and it'll fit into one of your areas of your business. So really love that you're doing that.
Thank you.
Finding amazing employees is the toughest job for any business, and especially for a law firm. You deserve to be the law firm owner you've always wanted to be, but you can't get there without a great team. Get Staffed Up helps you build your all-star team by staffing your law firm with incredible full-time offshore virtual assistants. Work with Get Staffed Up to save money and your biggest resource, time, while they find you the best English-speaking VAs in the world. # delegate your way to freedom. To learn more, go to profitwithlaw.com/get staffed up. profitwithlaw.com/get staffed up. Thanks to our sponsor, Smith AI. Smith AI is a superior virtual receptionist service for small businesses. They specialize in working with solo and small law firms. I discovered Smith AI a couple of years ago and was blown away by the range of services, which are available at a cost any attorney, even those of you in the smallest solo practice, can afford. Their friendly receptionists respond to potential clients in English or Spanish, screen and schedule new leads, and even take payment for consults. The best part is, they don't just handle these conversations by phone. They also have live agents and chatbots capturing leads on websites and via text message. If there's one growth hack to your practice, this is it. Smith's friendly gatekeepers can staff your front lines. They'll capture new leads while you work uninterrupted. You can finally have the peace of mind that while you're working, you're not missing out on future work. Plans start at just $210 a month for calls and $140 a month for chats. They even offer a totally free chatbot, so there's no excuse. Try Smith AI today and see for yourself why attorneys like Justy Nickel in Colorado say Smith AI receptionists are the secret to business growth and client happiness. Smith AI offers a free trial, and podcast listeners can get an extra $100 discount with promo code ProfitLaw100. That's ProfitLaw100. Sign up and learn more at www.smith.ai. Trust me when I say, don't let another day go by. try Smith AI.
All right. So you wrote a book, then you got speaking engagements. So the speaking engagements came after the book. Did you have to seek those out, or once the book was out there, they started to seek you out? How did that play out?
I sought them out. In nursing for continuing education, it's sort of like the continuing legal education. You have to submit like a proposal and be chosen to speak.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, I mean, one of the options that I have to get in front of my audience, attorneys, is to go to all the bar associations and say, hey, I want to speak, right? The problem is I certainly don't want to be traveling all year long to be speaking in front of people. I love speaking, but I love speaking virtually. I love in person, but I could do like 3 or 4 in persons a year, and that's enough for me.
Yeah.
I'm a family man and I've got young kids, and it's just not for me. It's not worth the sacrifice to, spend that time away from them. There's other ways, right? But I'm only pointing that out not to negate what you're doing. I think that what you're doing is amazing. But I'm pointing that out because I think that when somebody's listening to your story and they're thinking, oh, this is how I have to do it, I think that there's a lot of different ways to accomplish the same goal. So what we need to do is we need to listen for what is the root of what's going on here. Like, what is Lorie really doing when she's speaking in front of people? She's continuing to gain authority. There's different ways that you can gain authority in front of an audience. Speaking on stage is one, but you can get interviewed on a podcast. You can get a blog, a guest blog post opportunity. You can get an opportunity to be a forward in a book or be interviewed in a book. My friend Joey Vitale is writing a book for his audience, and he interviewed me. I'm going to be included in his book. His audience is not attorneys, but they're going to know who I am. And at some point, that's going to somehow parlay itself into something that's going to come about for me. I don't know what it is, and I don't care. The point is that when you have opportunities, you don't say no to them. You say yes to them. I was just on a show yesterday called Unblinded. I never heard of it before, but this guy Sean, who's blind, has a brand Unblinded, and he's a coach, and he's got this show where they put you in a hot seat and they give you a role play scenario, and you have to get somebody from hello to yes within 3 minutes. It was fun. It was fun to participate. Was it worth an hour of my time? I don't know. But I do know that it gave me exposure in front of another audience. It put me in front of other people. So when you have these opportunities to get on someone else's stage, it doesn't have to be in person. That really gives you a level of acknowledgement that you're not going to get otherwise. If people say, oh, this person must really know what they're doing. They must really, not that you need them to say that, but when you're competing against potentially other attorneys who maybe don't specify specifically what you do, and maybe, so maybe that's something that they're just going to, oh, sure, I'll do that for you. But then they've got somebody who's the leader in the industry, who speaks everywhere on the topic, who's got multiple books, and I get to choose between these two attorneys. There's no choice, right? It's easy. So Lorie, the sales process, getting a new client. First of all, you doing your own selling still, or do you have a sales team?
I do it all. I have an associate in my office, but people know me, they like me, they trust me, and I'd rather do the initial call.
So what is your experience? So having designed this system where now you're years into it, right? You've got books, you've got you probably have on your website as seen on, and you have a bunch of places you've been seen on. Somebody comes to you, they've already most likely gotten exposure to you in some way or another. What is your experience as far as the intake process goes? Are they just, hey, what can I do? Can you help me with my situation? And if the answer is yes, it's where do I sign? Or are you still finding that you need to close the sale just as much as somebody who might be getting people through Google pay-per-click?
It's certainly a lot easier. Obviously the challenge I have with nurses is the financial, but if you tell them, okay, if you don't have a license, how much less money are you going to be making versus all the money you're going to make for the rest of your career?
Right. And what does I don't you don't have to share your rates, but if you're willing, what does a typical nurse who's trying to protect? And I know nurses are not the only ones you work with, but a typical nurse that wants to protect their license and it's in question, what does that look like as far as the cost to them?
Well, I'm not going to share our fees, but we do
Mhm.
charge a flat fee and it's prepaid up front
Mhm.
because the minute something bad happens with the nurse and they lose their job or something happens, they're not going to be able to continue to pay me. So by doing the flat fees and prepays, it's been a game changer for me.
Right.
I used to be owed like a year of my salary because people wouldn't pay. And, my heart, I really care about these people. I'm a nurse too. And, but I'm a businesswoman and that
Right.
has to come first.
Absolutely. And folks, listen to what Lorie is saying, because we need to learn from each other rather than needing to learn these mistakes on our own. Lorie, how long did it take you to figure this out?
Probably 3 years, I think. Yeah.
Incredible. Hats off to you. First of all, I'm a huge fan of alternative fee arrangements. I'm also a huge fan of having upfront payments. And we have tools today that you might not even be aware of. We had a sponsor on the podcast for the first quarter of this year, and I'm going to mention them now because it's very relevant to what you're doing, but it's Lawfunder, LAWFUNDAR.com. And Lawfunder has two different scenarios, two different options that you can provide to clients who are trying to figure out, how am I going to be able to pay for this? And it kind of removes that whole payment conversation from the discussion, because now they can afford it, right? One is where your client has to actually apply for a loan, but it's kind of like I don't know if you bought a Peloton.
I am. I want a treadmill, but they've been recalled.
So I have a Peloton, and I actually gave away a Peloton at our Law Firm Growth Summit. But when you go to buy a Peloton and you go on their website and you go to buy it, or you call them, they offer you, I think it's like 36 payments or something, or 32 payments, and it's less than 3 years. I think it's 32 payments at 0% financing from a company called Affirm. And the company does the vetting of the person. They do some quick check to make sure that you're approved, and boom, you get it. And I'm sure Peloton pays like 5% or something on their end, or 10% or whatever it is, but it removes the whole conversation of, oh my gosh, I have to come up with $2,000 to buy a bike. Now it's like, okay, can you afford $60 a month? Great, let's go. So with Lawfunder, one option is to have them do a loan, where then they can spread it out over a longer period of time. You, as the attorney, get paid up front as soon as they sign the documentation, they're ready to go. The other thing that they can do is, if they have a credit card that has enough credit line for the entire engagement, they have a service that splits any invoice into 4 payments. So essentially, let's say it's $10,000 for your fee, they can give you a credit card that has a $10,000 limit, and it'll only charge $2,500, but it'll lock up the rest of the $7,500 on the card, so they can't use it for anything else. But they're not needing to pay it, not needing to come up with it before. And what happens is, every month it'll charge the next 2,500, and it'll release that back into the line. So it's really cool, and it costs the attorney 5% if you get paid up front. But to the client, they get to use the credit card that they get miles for, or that they have a 0% financing special on, or whatever it is. They get to use whatever credit card they want to use, and not have to pay it all up front. So it's a really cool option for people who are doing flat fee, who are trying to get paid up front, to remove the onus of risk from the attorney and put it on to somebody else, where it's not on you. So I don't know if you knew about that, but for our listeners, that's a perfect example of where that would make sense to use a tool like that. And it's easy. I mean, like, wouldn't you rather get 5% less when you collect it, and not ever have to have a collections call, and not ever, so, and maybe even close more sales, right? Because if you weren't doing this, you could still say, hey, you got to pay me up front. But now the client has to figure out how to come up with the money. So there's a certain percentage of people that are just, they're not going to come up with it. And they're going to be like, okay, I can't do this. And I'm just not going to. Where now, and you make it possible for them. And if you can save if you can save 1 out of 20, you're already ahead of the game, even with that 5% fee that you're paying.
Definitely.
So, all right. So Lorie, you've got multiple businesses. One of them is you're teaching other business owners. So talk to me about that. Is that, are those are nurses that are looking to do what?
And they're looking to either be legal nurse consultants or start some type of business. This pandemic has obviously been very devastating for nurses, and they're looking to use their nursing knowledge and doing something else with it. One of my freebies on my website is 101 ways to become a nurse business owner, and I came up with 101 ways that you can use your nursing knowledge and take it and start a business.
Incredible. So legal nurse consultant, is that something that would be of use or of value to our listeners, or if who would need that kind of person, and how are they going about and finding their clients?
Yeah, absolutely. Any attorney who deals with medical issues, having a nurse translate it for you and putting it in plain English for you is going to help you. And I think for plaintiffs' attorneys in particular, the biggest area is to know whether you should take a case or not. Is it a complication or is it malpractice? And as a legal nurse consultant, we can vet these things for you and tell you, whether it's what we think, whether it's malpractice or if it's a complication. And it seems like, I get it all the time. Attorneys call me and they say, oh, I've got this great case. This attorney did, or this doctor did a hysterectomy and they cut the ureter. So, I think there's malpractice. Well, no, according to the consent they signed, injury to the bowel, bladder, ureters, that's all can be a complication. So the question is, well, how quickly did they identify the problem and remedy it?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of areas. It's a minefield out there. These insurance companies want to hold on the money as long as they can. They're not making nuisance settlements. So you want to know if you have the most meritorious case. You want to get the best expert. We can help you find experts. We can do the medical research for you. We can do everything to save you time and money and help you have the strongest case possible going forward.
Now, you said one of your 3 businesses was the actual legal nurse consultants that you have working for you, and you're providing this as a service to law firms, but you're also teaching people how to be legal nurse consultants. So are you feeding those people into your business, or are you teaching them to run their own business that kind of competes with yours?
I teach them how to run their own business that competes. I have no problem with competition. I love it. I think that, if somebody says, well, here's a pie, there's only 8 slices. I'm like, well, just make more pie. There's tons of attorneys out there and that need our services.
Yeah, I love that. And I used that same analogy yesterday on that, or was it 2 days? I don't even remember when I ran it was 2 days ago, right? The Hidden Revenue Summit. But I use that same analogy where information products can expand your pie, right? Because what happens is that you are looking for people in a place where other attorneys are not looking for them. And you're looking for them before they need you or after they needed you. And which is a really great, or even as an alternative to legal services, right? So if somebody says, hey, I'm not going to do it myself, I'm not going to hire an attorney. Right, somebody out there is probably going to say, hey, I'm not going to hire you to defend my license because I can't come up with that money. I'm going to figure out how to navigate this on my own, and I'm going to defend myself, and hopefully I'm going to win. So if you had a course or a membership where you teach somebody how to do this, and then you also provide them support once a month to answer their questions and give them feedback, whatever it is, you can potentially solve the problem for somebody who literally can't afford to pay for it and is going to go on their own. But at least now you get something from them, you collect some money from them, and you provide them with a step-by-step solution that they can follow so that they're not on their own and they're not trying to figure this out themselves. but you record it once and you're done. I mean, I don't need to tell you about courses, you already sell them, but but that's the kind of thing where I think that our listeners need to think differently, broaden our horizons with what is possible out there, because there's so many there's rather than running from it. Like, look at LegalZoom. How many business attorneys were like, oh my gosh, LegalZoom is stealing our business, they're taking it away. Your business is not transactional things anybody can do if they did a little bit of research, figured it out themselves. That was easy money. The reality is that what you need to make money on is what your brains are really needed for. So instead of saying, oh my gosh, LegalZoom is a competitor, say, how do I do the same thing LegalZoom did? How do I make it easy for somebody to come to me and get things that are easy to be done without ever needing to consult with an attorney? There's a company, rally.io or rallynow.io. I'm not sure. Team, you're going to put that in the show notes, please. But Rally, I think it's rally.io. They have a place where you can put all of your documents in, and you can put in all the variables. Somebody answers a questionnaire and it fills out it drafts their document for them. And then they could choose to have a lawyer review it, or they could choose to just run with it. But you can create an entire shopping cart experience where they can literally come to your site, and it's like an e-commerce store for the legal documents that somebody might want to create. And it takes all that onus off of the staff, not needing to spend time with any of those clients. And you would think it would eat into business, but it doesn't, right? It's somebody who wants the consultation, they're going to pay for it. And somebody who doesn't, they're going to buy that document from you. Whereas otherwise they would have walked away. They would have kept looking for another solution, and you would have never got them as a client. So I think that we definitely need to think differently about how we practice law and how we offer our services to our clients, because there's so many opportunities out there today that just didn't exist a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. It's a new world.
It definitely is. Yes.
So Lorie, you've got your hands in a lot of pies. You've got a lot of different things that you're doing. What do you think is like a total game changer for the legal industry right now? What do you think? What have you seen as something that was like a light bulb moment that you implemented, that that you can say, hey guys, you got to check this out because this is amazing?
Well, I guess about 3.5 years ago, I moved to California. My office is still in Indianapolis. My staff is still in Indianapolis, and I wanted to move out here. My mom's out here. I love it out here. And I had no license, and not as a nurse and not as an attorney. And I had no idea how I was going to do it. And so I just trusted and moved and figured it out. And, the pieces fell into place. And so we have my office phone here links with the office, everything. We meet clients on Zoom in my virtual office. Everything can be done virtually, and we're learning that now. So when COVID hit, we didn't miss a beat because we were all set up for it. So I think that this is the wave of the future. I think that attorneys who are set up and can work anywhere are going to be better off than those that can't. And there's so much out there, so much technology. You don't need a brick and mortar building anymore.
Yeah, it's incredible. One of the things in the Clio Legal Trends report that they did this past year, the 2021 version, I think it was 2021, it might be 2020, that the one they most recently released. I keep a copy of it on my desk here. It's actually next to me. I could even look at it and see what year it says on it. But the 2020 Legal Trends report from Clio, there's an entire section at the end of it where it goes through and it says, look, you don't need an office anymore. And here's the average per attorney that we're spending annually on office space. And it's something like 10, 12, 15, $18,000 an attorney. I forget the exact number. But if you have like a 2, 3, 4 attorney firm, and that's almost a six-figure stream of revenue that you can keep if you get rid of the office. Now, there's a lot of arguments for why you would need an office, so I don't want to dive into that, but I do want people to start thinking about every single expense in your business needs to have an ROI, needs to have a return on that investment. And if you can't justify the office other than that's just the way it's done, then it doesn't make any sense to do it, right? You got to question everything that you're doing and say, is this really the best way to do this? And office space is just one of those examples. But I love that you went there, because that's how I got started with what I'm doing. So I got started with lawyers because I met where I got introduced to a new client. It was a law firm, and they introduced me to another. Before I knew it, I had 5 law firms as clients. They all had the same thing happening, which was, really nice offices in New York City. And that's not to say that I don't serve attorneys across the nation, right? But my first 5 law firms that I was serving were all in New York City. Beautiful offices, decent sized staff, and cases keep everybody busy. Yet when we went behind the scenes, because that's my job, right? I'm an accountant. I went behind the scenes to work with them on their numbers. They all 4 out of the 5, I shouldn't say all, 4 out of the 5 had the same thing happening, which was they were literally moving personal funds into the business before payroll and at the beginning of the month for rent to be able to cover those large ticket expenses that they had. And then they were playing this money game where they paid themselves and then they gave it back, and they paid themselves and they gave it back. And maybe even they were dipping into their retirement account, or they were dipping into personal savings to keep the firm running. And when you start looking at it, they weren't making money. These were, $500,000, $1 million, $2 million, $3 million firms, and they literally were not making money. And when you start looking at that, and all of a sudden you look at the rent bill, and you look at how much they're paying for payroll, and you start to say, oh, well, if I have another way of doing this, well, you do, right? We have Get Staffed Up. We talk about them here all the time. Go to profitwithlaw.com/get staffed up. You get a 40-hour a week virtual assistant, fully productive virtual assistant for $1,850 a month. No overhead, no taxes, nothing, right? Because they're overseas, right? Or well, overseas, they're offshore is what we say. But typically, a lot of them are in Central and South America. I have 2 assistants here in-house from Get Staffed Up, and they're rock stars. I mean, they're literally rock stars. The only thing that you don't have is they're not paralegals, they're not attorneys. But if you reevaluate your entire business model and you say, well, maybe I shouldn't be charging hourly, maybe I can charge flat fee or subscription or contingency, and now nobody cares who's doing the work as long as I'm overseeing it. Well, suddenly you can replace staff that's very expensive. When you get rid of 1 person in-house, you can replace them with 3 from Get Staffed Up. You get rid of 1 attorney, you can replace them with 5 or 6 people from Get Staffed Up, right? Imagine how much work can get done. Now, I'm not saying that they could do the work of an attorney, but I do think that a lot of the work that we do is stuff that could be delegated to a lower level if we put a little bit of framework around it, did a little bit of work up front to create systems and processes and templates and things like that, to really walk them through what needs to be done. So I think that your one point of, hey, I don't need an office is really something that should be triggering a bigger discussion of, do I need anything, right? Do I need this specific staff member? Do I need this specific piece of software? Do I need this? How many people still have an old-fashioned phone system in their office, right? What are you going to do with that? What happens when COVID hits and people can't go into the office? I forward my phones. Why not replace that with an inexpensive voice over IP system? I had 1 voice over IP system. I just switched to another. I switched to Zoom phones because it's half the price of the one I was paying for. And it's easy to make that switch because I didn't make a multi, $10, $15, $20,000 investment in a PBX that's hanging on the wall. Rather, I plugged something into my Wi-Fi, right? And literally it's not plugged into the Wi-Fi, but it needs power. So it's plugged into the wall. But that's really where I love that you went there, because we really has to get us thinking about every aspect of the business that we're building. And it's these things that lawyers are like, well, they didn't teach business in law school, right? If you want to make money, if you want to take money home, these are the conversations that you have to win at. you could be the greatest lawyer in the world, but if you can't figure out how to keep the money that's coming in, then what are you doing it for?
And if you don't have a life too.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of life, Lorie, what does life look like for you? Three
Uh,
businesses? I mean, are you relaxed? Are you stressed? Like what does that look like for you?
it freedom, the ultimate freedom. I live in beautiful San Diego. It's gorgeous. Um, I have a beautiful house. My kids are here. And yesterday I took off for the afternoon and went to this place called Lions, Tigers, and Bears. It's a wildlife sanctuary for animals that have been abused or, kept in little cages to be rescued and live the rest of their life. And so I go to the beach whenever I want. And it's just a matter of scheduling your time and your priorities and getting the help that you need. I have a overseas or offshore, as you call it, from the Philippines. I hired full time, and he's doing great. He's working on putting all my courses on LearnDash, so people can buy them or have access to them, and
It's
it's
awesome.
great. They're all working while I'm working too, but
Right.
I can take off when I want.
No, it's absolutely incredible. And the truth is that and I don't know if I should, well, I could share it here. Like I'm not trying to fool anybody, but you just attended a full day event that I did. Do you know what I was doing that day?
What?
I wasn't here because I did that event a year ago. So we repurposed all the videos, and I literally had one of my VAs, somebody down in Honduras was remote connected to my Mac. So they had access to my Ecamm live going out on my Facebook. And all they did was they hit play on the session and started the live, the live session when it was time. Now, it's not like we weren't there, right? My team was there. They were commenting in the comments with people that, it was really live, but I wasn't there. I attended some of the sessions, but for most of them, I spent the time with my kids. And it's pretty incredible when you start to realize the tools that you have and the ways that you can use them, that we can start to really free up a lot of the things that we're doing. And for me, my ultimate goal for me personally is to get to the point where all I'm doing is having these kinds of conversations. I'm doing coaching calls and I'm doing podcast interviews, and everything else in the business is being completely handled by somebody else. That's where I want to get to. I'm not there yet. There's definitely still things that I have my hands on. But ultimately, that's where I want to be, because I think that no matter what business you're in, if you're a business owner, you have to have had some sort of financial freedom and time freedom appetite in order to enter the risk of, let me start a business. So ultimately, I think that everybody's got a similar kind of thing, whether it's to spend time with your kids or whether it's to work on a hobby or travel or just be free to do what you want when you want. You probably have some sort of itch like that, and it's totally possible, but it's stepping stones, right? It's recognizing that, you got to learn to walk before you can run. You got to learn to run before you can, do the next thing, whatever that is. Right. And we build on that. And you learned that the hard way. It took you 5 years to then figure out, oh, I really need help. I need somebody in my corner to help me figure out when I'm getting in my own way. I'm putting words in your mouth, but I know what a coach does. And now I've gone through that process with a coach, and now I started another business or 2 businesses, and I actually had somebody in my corner, and look how quickly I was able to get things going, because I learned a lot of lessons along the way, and I've got somebody who's helping guide me along the way. So we're just about out of time. We're going to end the conversation here, but I like to leave with 2 parting things from you. One is, how can people follow up with you? What's the next step they can take if they want to learn more about you? And the second is, what's one parting piece of advice, parting piece of wisdom you'd like to leave for our audience today?
Okay, so I honestly don't have a website or anything for my legal nurse consulting, but my law practice is yournurseattorney.com, yournurseattorney.com. And you can reach me on the contact us page or my phone, 317-465-1065. Happy to help any legal nurse consulting issues you have. I'd like to offer a special for any of you who mention Profit with Law. We'll give you a 20% discount on your first case. And it's interesting for me with legal nurse consulting is I don't have to market anymore because the same clients that have used me for 20 years continue to keep coming back. So I don't really market that at all, but I am available to do that. And again, have a whole host of really amazing legal nurse consultants that can help you as well. And then in terms of if you have a professional licensing defense case, if you have a professional that comes to you, has a letter from the board and needs some help, I co-counsel all over the country. So don't turn the business away. Say yes and call me, and we can work together. And you'll be my local counsel, and I can help you through this process so you can learn it as well. And then in terms of parting words, I'm just going to share my favorite motto with you, and that is, I'm positively expecting great results. No matter what I see in front of me, the universe is rearranging itself for my best interest right now. So when you come from that perspective, that no matter what happens to you, you always find the good in it. And even if it's a bad situation, like I said, that losing my job at that law firm was the lowest point in my life, but I wouldn't be where I am today without it. So just remembering that, there's always a reason and some good will come out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we never see it in the moment, right? But when we look back 5 years later, 10 years later, we always look at those moments where we thought that our world was coming apart, things were coming to an end, and things would never be good again. We suddenly realized that was the door that opened up the possibility for new opportunities. And we also need to approach that from the other side, right? Recognize that you have to do that for other people too. And what I mean is, when you have a crappy client or you have an employee that's not working out and you hold on to them because you feel like you're obligated to serve them or you're obligated to employ them, just remember that you're holding them back from that next opportunity. You're holding them back from working with an attorney who's going to be much more aligned with them. You're holding them back from finding their dream job. And it's your duty to provide a service to them, to give them the opportunity to go out in the world and find the right thing for them. If it's not working by you, don't force the issue. Find the right person for you and let them go find the right place to land. So a lot of times we get stuck in this, I don't have the heart to do this to somebody. And the reality is you're actually hurting them by not doing it. So that's the same exact thing, just flip the other way. And I really think that we need to embrace that. So I love that you chose that specific saying. And we'll also put that up in our link that up in our show notes, in our social media around this episode, because I really like it. The other thing that you mentioned about not needing to market anymore because you got the same clients who keep coming back. It's awesome to have repeat business. Not everybody is in an area of law where they have that. So we recognize that. And so I don't want you to draw parallels and say, oh, she was able to do this, but I can't because, X, Y, Z. Take the pieces of this episode that are for you, whether it's write a book or become an authority on something. Take the slow road of putting the breadcrumbs in place so somebody can find you, rather than trying to take the short path, which ends up being the much longer path of trying to hit a home run the first time at bat. And I really think that just hearing your story and the steps that you've taken highlights that for our audience. So Lorie, it's been an awesome experience having this conversation with you. I really appreciate your openness, your vulnerability, and your willingness to spend this time with us. And folks, if you enjoyed this specific episode, you're going to love everything else that we're doing. So make sure that you hit the subscribe button in your podcast player so you get notified every time that we release a new episode. We're here twice a week. every Tuesday and Thursday. Tuesday, usually it's me, yours truly, just behind the microphone, shooting the breeze. What's on my mind? What topic came up? What am I talking to my coaching clients about? Different things like that, and just sharing that with you here on the podcast. And then Thursday, we have amazing guests that come on, just like Lorie. We have people from all walks of life, different scenarios, different backgrounds, some of them attorneys, some of them marketers or business coaches, all kinds of guests that we have on the show. And they're always great conversations. I mean, it's my favorite part of doing this for you, is being able to connect with these people and have these conversations on your behalf. So you get to be somebody who's sitting on my shoulder here with us, listening to our discussion. So I hope you enjoyed it. Take a moment, find a friend who can benefit from this episode and share it with them, because that's how we spread the word of the show. And we'd love to get a rating and review from you. But most importantly, take some notes from today's conversation and change something for the better in your firm. And I hope that that helps you on your way to success. Lorie, thank you again. Take care, folks. We'll catch you on our next episode.
Thank you.
That's it for this week's episode of Profit with Law. If you have enjoyed the show, please consider sharing it with at least one person. Imagine how many lives we can change if we each shared this episode. Another way to share the episode is on social media. We appreciate your support and look forward to you joining us again next week.